Good evening, I'm Mark Seal and welcome to Final Score. It's our sports show where we'll talk about the headlines and the newsmakers of the week. Tonight, it's looking as if there'll be a new ODI World Cup champion. Defending champs England are virtually out of the running, but who are among the likely winners? We'll discuss and predict. And the Barbados are still on the prowl for their first medal at the ongoing Pan Am Games in Chile. We'll go live to Santiago for a perspective. Of course, you, our viewers, can make your contributions and ask your questions via social media. WhatsApp number is 228-5562, while our Facebook handles are CBC Barbados or cbcnews.bb. So let's get straight into it. Hosts India are the only undefeated team left in the ICC ODI World Cup after winning all 5 of their games to date. Also playing impressively to date are current leaders South Africa and New Zealand, who have only lost once, while Australia rounded off the top 4 from winning their last 3 games after losing their first 2. Now at the other end of the standings, the defending champs England have only won a single game to date, as an unusual amount of upsets have been inflicted even before the halfway stage. With us tonight to talk World Cup cricket is former Barbados and West Indies cricketer, now cricket commentator and analyst, Philo Wallace. Good evening, Philo. And the first thing, India, well, they are the #1 team in the world in ODIs and they're currently unbeaten, impressively so. So, excusing the saying that cricket is a game of glorious uncertainties, and are the Indians not playing like champions in waiting?
Hey, good night, Mark. Thanks for having me on the program. Yeah, India are playing very good one-day cricket at the moment. And they're being led by the captain, obviously, Rohit Sharma, and the guy in the middle called Virat Kohli, who everyone thought a couple of years ago would not have made it to this World Cup, is proven out to be a big asset in that middle order. And he is showing the world that he is up for it. Obviously, the innings that he's played so far, the innings he's played some wonderful and he's chasing totals. And India are playing like they want to really take this World Cup home and take it. But India virtually out. I mean, England are out, but India are playing like they want to take it. They want to have it, that World Cup, in their hands 2023. And the final day are Ahmedabad in front of 130,000 Indian strong spectators.
Well, I mentioned a few of the teams, but for you, who are some of the other teams who are playing at a championship level?
I think when you look at the Sri Lankan victory, they've wake up actually, and they're playing good cricket. You can't underestimate the teams below, because you look at Afghanistan, they're also playing good cricket. These teams can, as they show, they're looking to win. And I'm really impressed with the Netherlands and how they have played in the World Cup. They show that they belong. And it's the top 10 teams in international cricket, in 50 over cricket. And they're showing us why they are the top 10 teams. I think they look at Australia as well. They have decided, look, we are going to put our foot down and stamp our authority. And they're bringing muscle and a lot of charisma and that kind of, that tough Australian way of playing cricket. So it looks good. And that is what you want to see. All 10 teams are playing different types of cricket.
And with the number of upsets, is this a reflection that the gap between the top teams and the also runs is closing?
Yeah, I think the gap is closing rather quickly, Mark. When you look at it, the top 10 teams are showing you, look, they're no big difference. If you look at one or two of the games, there's only a slight mistake in the field or a slight backing hiccup that caused them the game. Look at Pakistan today. Baba Azam was batting well and played a little funky shot, and obviously the hotspot showed that it touched his glove and he was out, and that pushed Pakistan back. Now, if he had continued to bat normal and they get 320, they would have stand a chance to beat South Africa. So there isn't a big gap in these teams, and our very own West Indies is not there. And I hope that the management side of West Indies cricket is looking at this World Cup to see what has to be done, because in 2028 it's going to be a different style of 50 over cricket. If we're getting 320 now, in 2028 we might get 400.
I was going to ask you about that, Philo. So many teams, it seems as if to win now you need to score near or over 300. Is that a changing standard now where once upon a time, you score 2 a lot and you have a chance, but it seems as if now 300 is the new standard?
Mark, 2 is too little. You got to look for 300 plus in this World Cup. And if you look at the pitches obviously are very good for batting. There's some early swing, yes, because the games are started mid-afternoon. But when that swing is gone from that ball, it's just sheer batting, is licks galore. And we saw how South Africa are playing. When they're batting first, they look at the top with the cop. He's just stroking the ball all over the place. And then you come in the middle with that guy called Clarkson, and he's just knocking the ball away. So when you look at in the next 3 to 4 years, teams will be looking at scoring 400 runs in 300 legal balls, because the thing is now in this cricket market, 50 over cricket, the batters can hit sixes from the Afghanistan batters right up to the South African batters. They all can hit sixes thanks to T20 cricket. They're not afraid. So scoring at 8 or 10 runs and over is not a daunting task like 5 or 6 years ago. In this modern day cricket, it's easy pickings for batters to go at eight to 10 runs and over.
And you just hinted at my next question. I was going to ask you, to what extent is T20 cricket responsible for how we are now seeing the ODI teams now scoring so many runs?
But T20 cricket is responsible for the bravery of the batters. Obviously, the bowlers have tightened up because you hardly get any no balls on wides now. The only wide is really down a leg side. But when you look at it, the T20 cricket has tightened up the bowlers and the batters. The fielding has improved. But the batsmen have become very, very brave. If you look at some of these batters, they're running down the pitch to some of the best bowlers in the world. And they're hitting them for sixes at will. And they're stroking the ball with a lot of authority. And it's pushing some of the best bowlers back. And that is good to see. So the bowlers now will have to find ways of trying to combat the batting styles that these batters have. Guys reverse sweep you for sixes, not even a four nowadays. So it's a lot of disadvantages to the bowlers because the batters now everything is in their favor.
And in team sports, there's always the need for a match winner. So, who are some of the players you're impressed with so far? For me, you have Glenn Maxwell, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Adam Zampa, David Warner, Quinton de Kock, Jarrell Mitchell. That's just to name a few. For you, who are some of the players that are really standing up in this World Cup?
I like the guy. I like the opener from Afghanistan, the 21-year-old. I think he's very good. He's only 21 years old. You can imagine him playing that cricket for another 10 years. He's going to be a world beater. I like the way how the Dutchmen are playing cricket. I look at these teams down below the big teams, and these are teams that are going to improve. I like the way the Dutchmen are playing. They're fighting all the way. They're playing as a unit, and that is what I like to see. They have depth within their batting, and that is very important. If you look at Sri Lanka, again, a young side, and those young men are standing up and saying, we want to do well. They walloped England the other day. They outplayed them, they outbowled them, outfield them, and then they outbatted England with young batters. And that is good to see. And this is a Sri Lankan side that is in transition. Angelo Matthews came in as a replacement, took a couple of wickets. But when you look at those batsmen from Sri Lanka, you got to say, look, these guys are going to go the distance and really bring some pride and joy to the cricket. If you look at Pakistan as well, they have some young batters in the middle order, who are doing well and want to, take away the spotlight from a Baba Azam and a Mohammed Rizwan. They want to take that away, and it's good to see that those guys are competing. And New Zealand, without a Kia Williamson, you got Jadeja standing up. Well, Devon Conway is a class all by himself, but they're playing together and they're pulling really well. Darren Mitchell has shown that he can come in there and control that middle order without the Kia Williamson involved, and show that he's a world class player. And New Zealand, they're quiet, but they're very, very destructive. So they're good cricketers across each team, which makes the World Cup, something to watch.
Well, still to come, we'll have questions from our viewers and followers on social media. We'll be right back with Final Score. Welcome back. We're with Philo Wallace talking World Cup cricket. Let's now go to our social media pages for some questions. And Philo, first question off the bat, it'll be an India versus South Africa final, and India will prevail at home. Your comments.
Well, one will play four, and two will play three. I'm looking at India to top the group, and they will play the fourth team. I think Australia it looks like, and then you will have South Africa and New Zealand battling out for that final position. I think India. I look at India and New Zealand. There's something about New Zealand's cricket that you cannot ignore. They have covered all the bases in India, and they don't seem to have any problems. The only team that beat New Zealand is India so far. So I will. South Africa are playing well. They struggled today to get a small 270 total, but they showed depth and character. But in a semi-final against a tougher opposition, I think that South Africa would have lost there. So I'm looking at the India New Zealand final for this World Cup, and obviously India that they have it set. The finals are set for a medal about 130,000 people, and they're all going to be wearing blue once India makes that final. And I think India will look to win it once they get into the final.
Well, that's interesting because the very next question or the next statement, someone says, no one's watching the Black Caps, but they're going to surprise the whole lot of you. So I think you just touched on that. Do you think, though,
Yes,
that it would be a surprise, though? I mean, New Zealand playing good cricket. I don't think it would be a surprise, though.
it'd be a surprise to people who don't understand New Zealand's cricket. Don't forget, New Zealand lost to England in a funny way in England 4 years ago. So New Zealand, they're looking to come back stronger and show the world that they are forced to be reckoned with, and they want to get there. They want to get into that final. So I think that it wouldn't surprise me, but it would surprise people because we don't hear New Zealand with all these big stars like India or Australia or even a South Africa. All we hear about is K. Williamson. But there are other guys that play in that New Zealand side that support the K. Williamson. He's not there. He's there, but he's not playing. But they're still doing well, and that is why they are a threat.
Let's look now at the next question. The Aussies are started slowly, but they're now finding form, and they're not even at full throttle yet. Certainly, this person seems to think that Australia are building, and once they hit full throttle, they might be the champions.
Well, Martin started to muscle the bowling, I can tell you that. And then Travis Head is going to come into their team, so he's going to add more firepower. You can't underestimate the Australians, Mark, because they're accustomed winning world championships. They like to lift these World Cups, and they like to come against the odds and do well. And winning this World Cup in India for Australian side will be huge. They will all get knighthoods when they go home because Australia don't do well in India, and that is at the back of their mind. So they've started badly, but now they're picking up pace. They're finding form. But when you get into the real meat of the matter, those teams that have consistent performances and win crucial games will be the one to come out on top. But Australia can't rule them out either because they know how to win. With the David Warners and those guys in that team that want to win and go out on a high, you can't underestimate them. But the New Zealanders, I believe the New Zealanders can stop them.
Okay, the next statement. I'm not surprised England is getting beat. This isn't T20 cricket. Clearly suggesting that England have perfected the T20 format, but now in the 50-over format, they're really showing that they're really the number 6 team in the world as their rating suggests.
Yeah, they're complaining now that they haven't played a lot of 50-over cricket. But their emphasis was on T20, and again, T20 cannot prepare you for 50-over cricket. I believe Test match cricket prepares you for 50-over cricket, and 50-over prepares you for Test match cricket. T20 is in a separate bracket all by itself, and they find themselves wanted. They started badly, and certainly they certainly can't find a mojo now because they are they're deflated, and they carry players hoping that they will get fit. You cannot go to a World Cup hoping that a player is fit. You're going to go to a World Cup with a set starting 11 and let that starting 11 play. Look at all the other teams who have done it that are at the top 4. Their starting 11s have been the ones who are pulling them through. So England find themselves wanting because they have not planned well for this World Cup.
So, Phil, it sounds as if you're not surprised that they're being beaten either.
No, I'm not. They started wrong. You see, they had a guy called Jason Roy. In 2019, he was the star of the show. And you drop him to bring in a fella who you're waiting to see if he gets fit. No, that is injustice. Jason Roy is your specialist opener. He should have been there and build your team around the opening pair. They have not done that. They mix and match and they find themselves wanting. They've done it years ago and they've come back and do the same thing. And now they see that it is the wrong thing. So when you start badly, you're going to end up in trouble. And they're in trouble. I'm sorry for Josh Butler because I like him as a cricketer, but he's under the cush. He's feeling the pressure of not winning games in the World Cup.
We have time for another question. Look at Netherlands and Afghanistan beating teams. The Windies should have been there.
Well, the Windies could not have been there because they did not qualify.
Simple.
And when you look at these 10 teams playing 50 over cricket, we would struggle. First of all, Mark, it is hot in India and our players are not fit. If you look at the Netherlands players, they're fit. The Afghanistan players, you can see they're fit. And their shirts are telling you because their shirts are sticking on them because it's really, really hot. I ain't seen nobody yet with a little bulge. Everybody has a six-pack. So first of all, we need to get our house in order in the Caribbean and realize that there's something called fitness and cricket skills that need to improve if we're going to be competitive in 50 over cricket. Look at the scores in India. India is supposed to have these funny pitches, but they're very good batting pitches. I don't know where the next World Cup will be played, but if they're getting 320 in India, the next place they're going to host this 50 over World Cup will have to replicate good batting surfaces. So big runs are going to score. It's just unfortunate that West Indies have not put their house in order in 50 over cricket, and I hope that they do it sooner rather than later because the world wants to see West Indies back in World Cup. We've won it twice, and we can win it 3-4 times.
Indeed. One more thing from me. No more social media. We just have a few more seconds. Is it too early, or you're willing to make a prediction as to who will win the World Cup?
My prediction is that India will win the World Cup. Once India makes the finals, they're going to win. That stadium, Ahmedabad, with 130,000 Indian fans wearing blue, is going to set the stage for India to do well. They just played Pakistan there and shocked them. And whoever they meet in the finals and they meet up on that blue is going to be trouble. They want to win. It is important that India wins that World Cup because they're hosting it again and they want to lift it. Virat Kohli will not be at the next World Cup. He wants to go on a high. And I think that they have the right ingredients and the right mindset to lift the 2023 World Cup in India.
Well, Phil, I'd like to thank you for being on Final Score once again. I do look forward to having you back before the final of the World Cup, where we can then maybe focus in on maybe the Final Four or maybe just the Final Two. So look out for a call from me, Phil. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mark. All the very best.
Cheers, man. After the break, we'll talk Pan American Games as we go to Santiago to hear from senior BOA official Cammy Burke and our man following the team, Damien Best. We're about to final score as we say good night to Cammy Burke, the Vice President of the Barbados Olympic Association, and CBC's Damien Best. Good night, gentlemen. I know you're an hour ahead of us. I'm thankful that you're still up at this hour to give us your expertise. Let's start with you, Cammy. Your impressions of the 19th game so far in comparison to others that you've been to.
Well, good evening, Mark, and good evening, listeners and viewers to the program. You'll notice that Damien and I are well clothed, and that is because we are very cold. So you can imagine what the athletes are experiencing when they're trying to perform. But these Pan Am Games have been pretty well organized. I must say, Pan Am Sports have gone out of their way to really make these games a spectacle here in Chile. As you know, the president of the Pan Am Sports is Chilean, and certainly he would want to put on an excellent show. The facilities are very well prepared, and certainly some of the performances have lived up to that expectation.
Brilliant. And Damien, you've been there going around from the beginning, checking out the stadia and all of the other facilities. Your take?
Well, good evening to you, Mark. Good evening to all viewers and listeners, and good evening to the Vice President as well. Cameron, good to see you again. Let me just first say that the facilities here in Santiago are, to say the least, in terms of the way they've been designed and set up. Swimming, you name it, back down is almost brand new settings. Some of the facilities have undergone renovations, the velodrome in particular for cycling. But they're well-appointed facilities. This is a big undertaking logistically for Chile as well. They've got to use a lot of transport. Some of the venues for events are a little away from the center of all the activity, which is the National Stadium. So it is a very big undertaking and involves hundreds of thousands of volunteers as well. So we've been able to move around to a good set of the venues. Some we've had to kind of cut our losses in terms of trying to attend all the venues when you have athletes that are clashing a little bit. But nonetheless, the facilities are top class, Mark. Just over 500 million was spent for these games, and that's only half of what was spent for Peru. So definitely they've invested heavily, and it shows that after these games are gone, the Chilean people will have a legacy to keep, and I'm sure they'll enjoy all these first-class facilities.
Brilliant. And coming back to you, you hinted to it just now. Are you satisfied first with the number of qualifiers that we have there, and of those who have qualified, are you satisfied with the level that they have shown as far as the competition is concerned?
Well, as you know, the games now, most games now, you have to qualify for the games, and that is obviously to cut back on the cost of running the game. So everyone here would have merited their participation in the games. As far as the performances are concerned, overall, I would say that we have performed fair to moderate. There have been one or two outstanding performances, and certainly I would like to start with the performance of Darian King. As you know, Darian has been off the scene for quite a while with an injury. He did play our Davis Cup matches and wonder, but he came up against Barrios from Chile, who's ranked 105, and Damien is ranked 475. And the performance that Damien put in was exceptional in my view. He lost the match. He won the first set 6-4, then he lost the second set 6-3, and then the final 7-5. But in that final match, Darian pulled out all the stops. He was 2-0 down, and then he came back and he led 3-2, and it was a seesaw encounter. And that, for me, has been the performance of our sojourn here in Santiago. Then we had Amber Joseph yesterday performing in the Omnium, and she finished sixth. Now, Amber changed her coach earlier in the year, and she now has a British coach. And before we left, we met with the coach, and we as a DOA, we identified some of our what we perceive as weaknesses from a layman's point of view, and we have seen some improvement in what Amber is doing. And I think her sixth place performance yesterday was sufficient testimony that things are going in the right direction for Amber.
And Damien,
as far as the shooters were,
well, can we continue?
As far as the shooters were concerned, Michael Maskell was the best of the shooters. I know lots of people question why we continue to carry Michael to games. He doesn't perform. But we have to understand what is happening. Michael is one of the shooters who we could consider a professional athlete. He lives in the US. He trains hard. That's all he does. He trains. He has the opportunity to come up against the best competition and regular competition, and he performed exceptionally well. We know that Michael has a problem when the hierarchy of the BOA is around. It just seems to be unsettling. But outside of that, Michael performs well. Michael finished 8th out of 27 in his competition. Now, as far as, and I think that is a commendable performance. As far as Michelle is concerned, Michelle went into her final shoot well established. I think she was second in the standing, but she ended up finishing. Where did she finish? I have it right here in front of me. She finished 7th out of the 11 competitions. But we also have to understand the conditions. On the first day, it was extremely cold. It was extremely cold. So, as you know, the fingers got stiff and all. So it's like, yes, all the competitors would have gone through the same situation. But for us who live in a tropical climate, that is something that we have to take into consideration. And I would say we cannot take the results as what we should judge the athlete on. Let's take Kennedy King. Kennedy King played exceptionally well, but he lost in the final. And again, that was a competition and a match that could have gone either way. We have seen here where we need to improve our preparation for the games. People might ask about Jabari Breedy, but Jabari came up against a tall Venezuelan boxer, and it was difficult for him to get inside and really land his punches, and he lost that match. Then we look at Charles Cox. Charles Cox trains at home, and it showed that he needed stronger sparring partners, because he performed at the level of his training. And clearly, if we want to improve boxing, we have to expose and find areas where the athletes would get stronger preparation to meet these tournaments.
Well, unfortunately, Cammy, I was there saying that we should have maybe had the entire half an hour for these games, because our time is up, and listening to you, we haven't even scratched the surface as yet. So I'd like to thank you and Damien. I'd like to invite both of you back before the games are over, maybe next week Friday, so that we can continue this conversation, because I even wanted to talk to you, Cammy, about France 2024. But the time is up, so we'll have to wrap up here. I'll be in contact with both of you to see if we can have a part 2 to this. But Finals will be back in a moment to wrap it up. Here's what coming up this weekend in sports. The Pan Am Games will continue. CBC's Damien Best will have reports during Sports Night. The ODI World Cup continues in a few hours. Australia versus New Zealand at 1, and then Bangladesh against Netherlands at 4:30, live on MCTV's ESPN channels. The CWI Super 50 has 2 games this weekend. Barbados Pride will take on Guyana on Sunday. Tomorrow is day 1 of the BCS Elite 6 series. Then on Sunday, the BCS Shield Final and also the BCL T20 Final. Well, that's our program for this week. So it's good night till next Friday. But remember, let's be careful out there.